police officer could be driving down the street and just thinking that's John Doe walking his dog and wave, but that's just the criminal that nobody knows and he's really suspicious, or he comes and parks in his scary white van all the time and we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
We need those calls to come in and we need people to report stuff to us.
Most people are not equipped to understand the seemingly endless facets of an HOA. That's why we're here, to help you become uncommonly prepared to serve your HOA. Whether you're a board member or a manager, join us in the Uncommon Area.
Welcome to the Uncommon Area. I am Matthew Holbrook, and in this episode, I talk to Lieutenant Phil McMullin, and we talk about what makes a community safe and what makes a neighborhood watch community particularly effective. And we get to discuss this all from the perspective of someone who has a career in law enforcement. So I hope that you enjoy this episode, and I would encourage you to subscribe and share so that other managers and board members can appreciate the content in the Uncommon Area. Well, welcome, Phil. Glad that you are part of the Uncommon Area today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you are the Public Information Officer for the City of Orange. What does that mean?
Well, basically, the media is always looking for what's happening. Why is there a helicopter up? I got a tip of something happening, and they need somebody to talk to. And that average cop doesn't want to talk to the media. So we have one voice for the PD, and that's me.
I'm really glad to have you joining us for this episode. We want to talk about community safety and how that relates to homeowners associations. And so I guess to get started, I wanted to ask you, just in general, within a community, if there's going to be criminal activity, in your experience and just what you've seen, what makes a particular home within a community more of a target for criminal activity as opposed to other homes in the same community?
I think a lot of that goes back to something we studied in criminal justice called the broken window theory. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with a little bit with that?
Yeah. If you allow a little bit of crime, then bigger crimes will follow.
It will. So one thing we like to do is take care of those little things so you don't have to deal with the bigger issues. So and as far as in an HOA board, when you have that one location, whether house or apartment, and it's looking like a dump, keep up on it. Or you see violations of rules, don't just let it go.
To jump right in, that's actually a really interesting point. You're suggesting that a home within a community that very obviously has violations going on as opposed to others in the same community that don't, that home might be actually making itself more of a target?
It will, and it will invite more of that criminal element in.
Okay. So it's actually an incentive for homeowners within an HOA, even if they don't like the rules and regulations, they might as well abide because it actually is a component of keeping their home safe.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Then would that apply to a community as a whole? So I was asking the question, why would one home within a community be more of a target? A community as a whole, if it's just not well maintained and the rules aren't well enforced, might that make the overall community more of a target compared to other communities?
It does, because then businesses aren't going to want to come in. The tax revenue is going to go down, and you're not going to be able to thrive. People aren't going to want to go to that run-down, beat-down area where it's unsafe, and they'd rather go and spend their money in those safe communities where they can go and get the same items at the same cost. And overall, you just feel safe in those areas. So what we like to do is focus on not just the community HOA, but what are our businesses looking like? Are we taking care of all the crime, the blight, and making it a peaceful place for everyone to live safe?
Yeah. So it's not just the community itself, but just the surrounding area as well. Within the community, are there certain things that some communities do that just make them a safer community just within the HOA itself?
There are opportunities to do what we call hardening the target.
Okay.
Or crime prevention through environmental design, not making things easy for the criminal.
Okay, so what might some of those types of things be?
Well, sometimes there might be a huge planter or a dumpster enclosure that's open, so people can just go and hang out. or there might be places for people to charge their phones or their ankle bracelets or whatever they need to charge and come and hang out. And as they're hanging out, charging their phones, and they see an open garage, then it's a crime of opportunity for them to just walk in and help themselves.
So those natural kind of congregating or hanging out areas within a community might actually be a detriment?
In some aspects, yes. And a lot has to do with maybe lighting or cameras, and then the enforcement of any sort of violation there might be. Some areas it's legal to hang out and be in certain areas, like on public sidewalks. And there's other businesses or private property where people aren't allowed, and we hope that they take action. There's times to just shoo people along, and there's other times to get the police involved and arrest them for actually trespassing.
So let's talk about cameras for a minute. A camera that is mounted on a private home, but is directed into areas off of their property. One, is that acceptable? And two, is there any type of notice requirement from that homeowner, generally speaking?
If it's going into a public view that anybody can see if they're walking down the sidewalk, then that's okay. It's when it's encroaching into people's private property that's the issue.
Right. But if it's just out like onto a public street, that there's no notice requirement there at all?
No, those help us a lot in solving some of our crimes on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. What about cameras in an HOA common area, in a common area park or a green belt area or something like that? Does there have to be any type of signage or anything that says, hey, you might be recorded?
No, they're out there, and anybody can walk around and record if they have their cell phone out. Mm-hmm. And those also help us in our investigations.
So when we see in certain public locations that there is signage talking about cameras, is that just part of the message to be a deterrent, just giving a heads up that, hey, you are going to potentially be on camera, as opposed to it being a requirement?
Yeah, it's part of the crime prevention strategy.
Okay.
Showing that, hey, you're being recorded, and they'll probably say, well, let's go somewhere where we're not being recorded.
Yeah.
Let's go somewhere where it's dark, there's not lights, and we can hide and hang out and do whatever other type of criminal element thing we want to do.
Yeah. Do you recommend you've mentioned lights a couple of times here. So lighting is important both with a private residence as well as into those common areas. So I would expect that having a good lighting in the common areas is important. For individual homes, is it worthwhile to have things like just have a front porch light on all night? Would that be a recommendation?
We do. We recommend light up the streets and working patrol at night. You can tell a huge difference when you drive down a street and everybody has their porch lights off or their outside lights versus a neighborhood that has it all lit up. It's more inviting for the criminal when it's dark. So
do you see that as a trend, like certain communities where it's everybody is largely either has their lights on or lights off?
Yeah, and sometimes it's a good mix. I even tell my neighbors in my neighborhood, hey, get those porch lights on, the lights outside the garage, light it up. You don't want it to be dark. You want it to be lit. Another thing as far as lights, there are some criminals that hang out in a neighborhood waiting for the sun to go down to see if people start turning their lights on inside their house. It's a good indicator for them that nobody's home.
Right.
And they can maybe go in and help themselves to whatever they want.
So that's where maybe like having lights on timers and so forth would be a good idea.
Yeah. And have it on timers, or if you're home, get your lights on.
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of minutes ago about garage doors being left open. I would imagine when we talk about crime of opportunity, that would be a big one where people just leave their garage doors open and unattended.
Some do it. Yeah, some do it by mistake, and some do it because they feel safe. They feel this level of safety in their community, whether it's gated, that, I've lived here for 20 years, but I've come home late, even on nights when I work graveyard, and I see that my neighbor left their garage open. It might be 3 or 4 in the morning. I have the relationships where I can go in and just shut the garage and run out, jump over the little beam.
Yeah.
But we do highly encourage everyone to keep their garage doors shut. There's so much opportunity. There's so much good stuff inside their garage. They start going in the cars. They get the garage door openers. They get information, nice set of golf clubs. Just a lot of good stuff in there.
All right, so you can settle kind of a little bit of a personal issue here now that you brought this up. A while back, we actually at my home had some golf clubs left out on a porch, and they disappeared. and a couple of days later found those golf clubs listed for sale online, and they were being sold in a home, probably 15, 20 minutes away from our house. What would you recommend in that situation?
So the first thing to do is when you notice something's stolen is make a police report.
Sure.
So that's the first step, because that report, you might think, well, nothing's ever going to happen. You'd be surprised at how many times we find random property on people and we know it's stolen, we just can't prove it. And we need that report to help back that up. So once that report's taken, the patrol officer might go and do a little sweep around the area, look for it, but he's got to go to the next call and the next call. That report actually goes to a detective. And when you have a detective assign that case, you're going to call him and say, guess what? I've got this, these are my clubs, they're for sale. Mm-hmm. Well, we would expect that detective, kind of dressed like I am undercover today, and, hey, I'd like to buy those clubs, and then go and buy them. And then you got to prove that they were either in possession of the stolen property, or maybe they're the ones that actually took it.
Yeah. So, and that gets a little bit more complicated when you're talking from one city to another, I would imagine, different departments.
Well, I had a case at a hospital in Orange, and there's a lot of big ones, so I won't mention which one, where somebody was selling a laptop computer online. So I did the meetup, bought the computer, checked the serial number, and I already did a little homework on who this person was that was selling it. And I went to another nice coastal area where he lived in Orange County, had already written a search warrant and found a lot of stolen property, a lot of computers. Wow. So the jurisdiction isn't an issue for California police officers working in California. We can go throughout the whole state of California.
Well, good. Well, I wanted to also ask about neighborhood watch programs. First of all, do you think that they're very effective?
Yes, if the people show up to them.
Yeah.
And if they do what we talk about, and a lot of it's just so much common sense. And in our jurisdiction, we do hold quite a few neighborhood watches, not just for the community engagement, for the education, and it's an opportunity for us to share some of those crime prevention safety tips with them.
Yeah. So when you're saying we hold neighborhood watch programs, so this is something that the local police department would actually provide some educational resources to neighborhood watch groups?
Yes, free of charge. We want to go out. We want to have less crime in our communities. We want it to be safer. And we go out in HOAs specifically. Sometimes we'll reach out, but we might be a little hesitant saying, well, we don't want neighbors to think there's bad stuff going on here. Because we usually try to bring the crime stats, what's happening in this area, to bring the knowledge and information about what's truly happening. Because sometimes they think there's a lot of bad things happening. We'll say, well, nobody's called us. We have no reports of any of this stuff going on. And I can tell you, once we're at the meeting, a lot of stuff we hear is, well, we just don't want to bother you. We see some stuff, but we know you guys are busy. And we say, absolutely not. That's like walking into a business where you want to buy some tacos. Say, I really want to buy a taco.
But you're kind of busy.
You're busy, and I don't want to make you work any harder.
Yeah.
It's our job to respond to calls for suspicious people.
Yeah.
Calls of, things just aren't right. We don't live in these communities. We don't really know what's normal and what's not. So a police officer could be driving down the street and just thinking that's John Doe walking his dog and wave, but that's just the criminal that nobody knows and he's really suspicious, or he comes and parks in his scary white van all the time and we just don't realize it.
Yeah.
We need those calls to come in, and we need people to report stuff to us.
So the role of neighborhood watch is then primarily to just be eyes and ears to relay information to the police department. Is that the idea? That's
part of the idea. The other idea is when you're living in an HOA, sometimes the bigger apartment complexes, something happens where their car might get broken into or a package will be stolen, and they think it's the role to go talk to the manager about it. Much like somebody in a dorm, back in your college days, you want to go tell the dorm RA, and the RA might collect all this information, and then when we meet them in a community outreach. Oh, let me tell you what's going on in our community. All these bad things are happening. And we're like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
It needs to empower the residents to take personal responsibility and call the police directly when things happen. And it might just be a package with a book in there and they got refunded the money and they don't care. Well, we still want to know where crime's happening, because when we go out into service to patrol our community, we're not just aimlessly driving around. We're using the data to put the cops where the crime's happening.
Yeah.
So if there's a community that keeps calling us, we're going to go there and we're going to put our undercover officers there. We're going to put maybe a decoy car. We're going to do more outreach to that community because they're reporting the crimes versus the location that things are happening, but they're not telling us about it.
Yeah. So you were talking about packages. I would imagine that these days that's probably one of the most common crimes that you would see, is somebody taking a package off of a front doorstep or something. When you, as a homeowner, when you're doing online orders for Amazon or anything else, is there something that you should be having in mind about how you have those packages delivered?
They're absolutely. If you try to be home when it gets delivered. A lot of people have services where they can tell you when it's coming. Some communities have lock boxes, and there's other stores locally that will allow you to have the packages delivered them at those locations and those lockers. Yeah. Some will, you have to make sure that they put it into your special mailbox and not just leave things on the front porch.
Can you talk at all about what is the frequency or what's the risk level of having packages delivered to your front door?
Oh, it can happen anywhere from the multi-million-dollar homes to our lower income areas. I don't think we're seeing the full picture on what's being reported to us, because I think a lot of them go unreported. And there's a lot of people that like to put those just on the Ring videos or on social media and post it out there. I've had instances where I monitor social media, I recognize who that thief is, and I reach out to the HOAs and I say, we know who this is. Please tell your resident to make a report. Make a police report. We want to go arrest this person that's stealing packages. But they won't take the time to make that police report, probably because they already got refunded. Yeah. But that's not our biggest crime.
Okay, well, what is?
It's people breaking into cars.
Yeah.
And the problem is, it's not just them leaving the cars unlocked, it's that they're leaving valuables in their car, because they'll very easily, if they see an iPad out, break a window and steal whatever's out. This was in my car, so I decided to take it up here with me today. I didn't plan on doing much work up here.
Yeah.
So it's leaving things out in the open or leaving the cars unlocked so people go in and start rummaging through it.
What about leaving things in your trunk?
Better, but if people know there's stuff in there, all they do is break a window and usually pull the latch.
Yeah.
So be careful with that.
Yeah. On the package delivery, so packages and you say cars. Those are probably those are the two most common within a neighborhood.
In most communities, that is the most common. And if we can cut back on those, we're going to cut back on a lot of other crimes.
Yeah. Back on the package delivery. Does the advent of these Ring doorbells and all of the cameras that are much more common these days, has that had an impact on reducing crime level in your opinion? What's the impact now?
Well, there's a lot of politics involved in this, on people that are no longer going to jail for serious offenses. When COVID came around, everybody, is normal for people wearing masks, and it's hard to tell. Some of the cameras pick up late, so you just see the backs of people as they're running away. Yeah. But there's nothing I love more than putting somebody's face out there on blast. Like, do you recognize this person? Yeah. And getting the tips in on who those are. Their cameras are a deterrent, but it's not going to protect your package.
Yeah. Anything else? So I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but back on the cars, anything else that somebody should have in mind to make their car less of a target? So let's say they've got everything out of sight in their car, or they've cleared out their car, but a criminal might still break in wondering, is there something in the trunk, and go through that effort, and maybe they find nothing, but you still have a broken window. And Is there anything that you can do to make your vehicle less of a target?
Parking in a well-lit area helps. Somewhere where I know there's some places where they've opened up their glove boxes so people can see there's nothing inside.
Yeah.
Just knowing that sometimes there is nothing we can do. Cars are just people. There's criminals out there, and they're going to do what they can to steal. And
I know of some areas where there have been there's been a pattern of owners leaving the windows rolled down, leaving nothing in the car. Windows are down, but just making it so look. You don't have to break a window, but there's nothing in here.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that around here. I wouldn't want someone to come help themselves and sleep in the car.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessary. For the most part, if you have nothing in plain sight and you lock your car, the chances of you being a victim are very low.
Okay. Well, and then back on the neighborhood watch, organizationally, is there any observations or anything that you can say that, hey, if it's the neighborhood watch groups that are organized in this way or that do this that actually stay sustained and are effective, and any observations you can give about an effective neighborhood
when you're
watch?
able to build a relationship with somebody from the property management or somebody from the HOA, and you have a recurring meeting going on, usually like once a year.
Okay.
Just it's that extra reminder. We come in and we say, these are the crimes that have happened in the last area in your HOA. And this is what we need your help. Everybody remember, lock your stuff, hide it. Call us if you see anybody suspicious. If something doesn't seem right, don't think somebody else is going to call us. We'll take 5 or 10. We don't care how many phone calls we get.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to call us. And it's
When
just
you say call, by the way, if you see somebody suspicious, you should call the number directly for the police department as opposed to 911, right?
Yeah, 911's emergency, somebody not breathing, a major car accident, somebody's actually breaking in your house at the time. If you see somebody suspicious, call that non-emergency number for your jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's going to go to the same dispatcher, the same call center for the most part, but it's just going to give priority line to 911 for those actual life and death emergencies.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess as we just begin to bring this to a close, is there anything that's maybe not as obvious that people don't think of that they should be doing to help cultivate a safer community or a safer home?
Know your surroundings. Sometimes people get very comfortable, which they should. It's your home.
Yeah.
But take that extra second to look around, see if there's anything out of place. And at that point, don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors. Get to know your neighbors.
Yeah.
Have that connection where you can text them and say, hey, there's this person here. Okay, I'm going to call the police and let them know.
Yeah.
Is this person here visiting you? Or I saw them walking around. This isn't right. And then follow up with the manager or the HOA and let them know, hey, I called the police because of this reason, because I think it's important that everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But remember that resource, you're the homeowner. You're in charge. It's your personal safety. You take your own responsibility and then communicate with everybody else afterwards.
Yeah. What about mailboxes? I know in some of our communities we've experienced an increase in mailboxes being targeted and broken into. Anything that homeowners should have in mind with respect to mailboxes?
Locked mailboxes work a lot better than the ones that are open. Those do get pried open from time to time. I haven't seen that on a rise. The harder you can make it for a criminal, they're going to go to the easier target. So that's why we talk about hardening the target.
Yeah. Yeah. So make yourself not an easy target in every way as much as possible. And, the criminals will move on to another target.
Yep. That's it.
Well, Phil, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate your time and your input and your encouragement to call people to be more vigilant and pay more attention to what's going on. And I hope that that's a helpful episode of the Uncommon Area, and I would encourage you to look for more episodes.